Through the slugfest that is seasonal anime, you are bound to encounter some that are good and resonate with you, as well as some that might repulse you. Today, I will briefly go over the anime I dropped for the year of 2020, but before I do so, I want the folks at home to keep this in mind. Me dropping a series is not indicative of the quality of said series. All of the series I dropped, I only watched less than half of the total amount of episodes, so my perspective is shaped based on a small sample size. If you see a series on here that you like, please refrain from bitching about it. I promise you it's not that deep. With that being said, let's begin. At the time of the 2020 winter season, I felt as if the pool of anime was as barren as a tundra. However, in that blistering cold, I thought I found a snug all-black North Face jacket sent by God himself to shield me from this icy land devoid of any warmth. To my horror though, this was nothing but a mirage. What I had wrapping me up wasn't a heat pad meant to protect me. It was that fucking mid meant to put me in eternal hibernation, starting with Magia Record. I hesitated in deciding to watch the series for a number of reasons. For one, I'm a person that doesn't welcome sequels, spin-offs, or side stories to series I already felt had a satisfying conclusion, especially when it comes out years after the original. I love Madoka Magica, and I highly doubted Magia Record would live up to my high expectations, so I dismissed this series pretty quickly. That is, until I seen what would be airing for the winter season, and with me not seeing much that piqued my interest, I eventually picked up Magia Record by default. This, of course, was a mistake. As I said in my first impressions video of Magia Record, what really worried me about this show was the fact that Gen Orobuchi, the writer of Madoka Magica as well as Fate Zero and Psycho-Pass, was not writing this series. Since the groundwork was already laid down though, as far as the world of Madoka Magica with the witches, magical girls, and curses, I wanted to see where the story was going to go. But by the time I got to episode 4, I did not give a fuck anymore. Nothing that happened was a trigger point for me to drop the series. Although that friendship staircase shit was stupid, I kind of just phased out of the series because I lost all intrigue. I wasn't vibing with the characters too much, which is something I put a lot of stock in. Aroha felt like a generic Madoka in some respects, and that goes dividend for Nanami feeling like Homura. The mystery was somewhat compelling with the new Kyubey and Aroha's lost memories, but the series didn't have something that really hooked me. I will say though that OST was pretty good from what I heard and did well to dictate the tone of the series, so nice job on that front. The transformation sequences were also dope as well. Next up is Oshi ga Budokan Itekure Tara Shinu, or in English, if my favorite pop idol made it to the Budokan, I would die. Being a Love Live fan, I make it a point to try out idol anime in the hopes of getting the same feeling. This has proven to be unsuccessful, as Oshi and other anime haven't clicked with me like Love Live did. To this series' credit though, it doesn't focus on the idols themselves, but rather the fans. In particular, one fangirl, Iripio, who goes hard as hell for her favorite idol, Mina, buying tickets to all the shows, writing fan mail, buying apparel, the entire deal. While seeing through the lens of an idol fan was unique to me, I found this show boring. I didn't like the slow burn of Aripio and Mina's relationship, I guess because it was a situation where misunderstandings impeded their progression, sometimes in the most contrived of ways, like the time Mina returned Aripio's fan mail but then it got lost in the wind at the end of the episode. At least I think that's what happened. It's been a while. I believe I only watched 2 episodes of this series, so I don't have that much to say, but I'll say this much: it wasn't awful, just not my cup of tea. Last for the season is Keep Your Hands Off Azolkin. Now, to the people who watch the series, y'all might be gasping for air, readying the torches and pitchforks, but calm down. Although the first episode of the series didn't grab me, I don't think it's bad at all. From what I seen, which was the first episode and the first episode only, it looked like a creative and artsy kind of series that might turn out to be something I like. This wasn't a series that I consciously dropped. I didn't make a declaration to say, this is fucking trash. trash. I'm never watching another episode. I just watched episode 1, nodded my head, and didn't go back to watch episode 2. I'm neutral on this series, so I wouldn't mind trying to give it another chance at a later date, especially because I love the design for Sayaka. She sort of reminds me of a character I know, and for what I remember, she was all about her dollars, so I respect it. On to spring. First on the chopping block is Gallipnir, which I didn't plan on watching until it was recommended to me by my comrade in arms. To their credit, they suggested that I watch the show because they thought I would fuck with Claire, the main heroine, who has some commonalities with the kind of characters I gravitate towards. Those attributes include being a woman, having some sort of villain in the street, having a good design, among other qualities. However, sadly, once I realized Claire wasn't doing it for me, the rest of Gallipnir fell apart. The premise alone was off-putting. The MC turns into a monstrous mascot like teddy bear, fighting other monstrosities for coins, maybe? So already I was looking at the series sideways. Adding Claire piloting a teddy bear like a Gundam and making suggestive comments like how she peed while inside of the costume, and I was out. The entire series felt like one big sexual innuendo meant to make a dirty joke out of everything that was going on. Bear in mind, no pun intended, I'm not a prude that's appalled by crude and sexual content, but I felt like that was supposed to be a major draw of the series, but it had no positive impact on me. As well, I did not have any love for the MC, Kagaya, who follow a character archetype that I absolutely dread, which is the scared, hesitant, and pushover high school kid who has to be dragged along by someone else to motivate them into action. That character personality in of itself isn't bad, but I don't give a fuck to see it. I don't find anything entertaining about it in the slightest. Obviously, Kagaya could have grew from that, but I dropped it 2 or 3 episodes in, so I'll never find out. I think Gallipnir is for a niche group of people, and I happen to not be among them. Last for the season is Tamayomi, which this is all on me 100%. I cannot deflect any blame here. From the moment I laid eyes on the series, I should have known what I was getting myself into. It was a sports series, it was quote a Yuri unquote, and it was done by A Cat, which as I speak does not have a single anime above a 6.5 on my anime list. I don't know what happens in the story of Tamayomi, nor do I want to find out when it is packaged in a form of ugly ass art and bad animation. Of course, looks aren't the only important aspect of an anime, but one must acknowledge it factoring in people's interests. Bottom line, with one episode to serve as a sample, Tamayomi looked grotesque. The character designs look like they came straight out of some build-a-anime assembly line with not a modicum of uniqueness, style, or creativity. And this is especially damning in a sports series where action scenes are in abundance, so if it doesn't look good, it becomes an even more glaring issue. I chose this series because it was, as I dubbed it, Yuri Baseball, but I foolishly believed that this studio would be able to bring the genres of Yuri and sports together. Instead, I was left with a hideous piece of shit, reminiscent of a failed fusion attempt from Goten and Trunks. The summer season, starting off with a meathead favorite, the god of high school. If you want to see my raw opinions on why I dropped the series, go check out my live reaction on my second channel, Satsuki the Reactor. If you want a condensed version of what I said, here we go. I thought this show had good animation, and originally I was invested in how the martial arts would go over in the series, but that faded as fast as Barry Allen. For one, I didn't expect nor did I want a series with JoJo-esque powers almost out the gate. I enjoyed the hand-to-hand combat, and sure, you can make the argument that being limited in that regard would eventually get stale, but it happened so subtly I couldn't believe it. It went from niggas throwing hands, albeit exaggerated heavily as they were doing things not humanly possible, but there's a difference between amped up martial arts and JoJo stands. Besides that, I wasn't feeling the fast pace of the series because in my opinion, it undermined the weight of the fights. For me to truly be engaged with a fight, it has to have more than the glitz and glamour. It has to have a story behind it. This is why wrestling, boxing, MMA all have these promotions and press conferences to build up the anticipation of two people fighting, because the fight itself is only half the battle. With the God of High School, we're immediately thrust into a tournament with no true introduction to these characters to feel hyped for any of their fights. And apparently, the God of High School has pissed off webtoon readers by skipping a ton of content, so it just goes to show you the era of webtoon anime is not upon us. Following up is Rent a Girlfriend, which I dropped at a record speed of 8 minutes into the episode. And if you've heard any criticisms or complaints about the series, my opinion isn't different from the usual. Fuck the main character. I didn't bother to look up his name because I don't give a fuck. He started the series off getting his pitiful heart broken, getting a stimulus package, and renting a girlfriend to fill the void. Then he rents Chizuru, spends some time with her, and decides it's time to act like a dick. He gets mad at Chizuru for doing her fucking job, gives her a negative review, and chews her out in person. I know people have thrown out that his irrational behavior was due to him being depressed over his girlfriend breaking up with him, which is fine. However, I think it's also understandable to find fault in the MC's actions, whether there's reasoning behind it or not. This nigga rented a girlfriend. Logic should tell you that it's a temporary relationship, even in that state. And if he's too stupid to realize that, then fuck him. And people also may want to point to the growth of this dickhead as a reason one should stick around with the show. But if his starting point is this, then I'm good. And with a series like this, although it is unfounded on my part, I get the vibe that it'll devolve into a harem at some point, only for us to be waiting for the obvious couple to triumph in the end. I've seen it too many times, and Rent a Girlfriend didn't show me any reason why I should see it again. Fuck Perry. From the same person who recommended me Gallipnir, we have Decadence, another flop of a suggestion, but not as big as the other. Decadence wasn't bad at all from what I saw. It started off as some Attack on Titan-esque survival series and then became something else with a plot twist and a story. And although I tried to give it a fair chance after the twist, I wasn't feeling it. Again, this series doesn't have many issues I have with it. It's more me at this point in time being burnt out with other series and being disillusioned with the recommendations of my comrade. So I just dropped this series as a mercy kill. I didn't think I love it, but I didn't think I hate it or dislike it. It was likely going to be a run-of-the-mill anime for me, and I wasn't looking forward to that. So that was Decadence's fate. I almost forgot I even watched the misfit of Demon King Academy. Just like Decadence, it wasn't a show I thought was bad, but it did seem a tad bit boring in comparison to other anime I was already watching at the time. Like I already stated, at this point in the anime season, I was washed, which means I was less tolerant of anime that didn't immediately captivate me early on. The misfit of Demon King Academy at least had a fight that was eye-opening from the jump, but I didn't want to stay to watch the devil go to college. It's a premise that would have appealed to me more if it was a comedy, but since it wasn't, it lost me and I never looked back. Lastly, representing the fall season by its lonesome, I have Rail Romanesque, a series that I can tell you nothing about. It's a short series with 3 to 4 minute episodes. It has a female cast and it stinks. I literally have not a fucking clue what I was watching with the series. I think I watched 2 episodes of it and I regret it. Thanks, EA. Well guys, that about does it for all of the anime I dropped in 2020. Don't take me dropping a series you like as a slight against you or the series. Not every drop is purely determined by the quality of said series. And remember, drops can be reversed. I've done it before. But guys, that is it for this video. I hope y'all enjoyed. I'm Satsuki the Savage. Like, comment, subscribe. I am out.
Tasting your soul, you're not in control, just giving you goals. Scared of your past, the future is closed. The start is the end is a start. They both are the same, can't tell them apart. Nigga, that's cuz the intro was the outro.